The Mannequin Factory. Samantha Green had always been a curious soul, driven by an insatiable need to uncover the truth. As a young journalist, she thrived on unraveling the stories that others were too afraid to touch. So when whispers of the old mannequin factory on the outskirts of town reached her ears, she couldn't resist. The factory had been shut down for years, a crumbling relic from a bygone era. It was said that once, it had been the most prolific mannequin factory in the region, producing lifelike figures that were shipped all over the world. But the factory closed abruptly, and rumors began to circulate about the true nature of its operations. Determined to get to the bottom of it, Samantha gathered her equipment and set out for the factory one chilly autumn evening. As she approached the looming structure, a sense of unease settled over her. The building stood like a sentinel, its windows dark and empty, its walls covered in creeping ivy. Samantha pushed open the rusty gate and made her way inside. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and every step echoed through the vast, empty space. She turned on her flashlight, casting long, eerie shadows along the walls. The main production floor was littered with the remnants of abandoned machinery, half-finished mannequins, and piles of dusty fabric. Samantha's eyes were drawn to a row of mannequins lined up against the far wall. They stood silently, their glassy eyes staring vacantly into the void. She approached them cautiously, her flashlight beam dancing across their eerily lifelike features. There was something unsettling about these mannequins, something too real. As she examined them closer, she noticed subtle details. Veins beneath the translucent skin, tiny hairs on the arms, and even faint freckles. A chill ran down her spine. These mannequins were unlike any she had ever seen. They were too perfect, too human. Samantha felt a knot of dread form in her stomach. What kind of materials had been used to create them? Her investigation led her deeper into the factory, where she discovered a hidden door behind a stack of crates. It led to a narrow staircase that descended into darkness. She hesitated for a moment, but her curiosity propelled her forward. The basement was cold and damp, filled with the hum of ancient machinery. As Samantha explored, she found herself in a large, dimly lit room. The walls were lined with shelves filled with jars containing strange, preserved specimens, organs, limbs, and other body parts. Her heart pounded as she realized the true horror of what she was seeing. In the center of the room stood a large table, stained with dark, dried fluids. Surgical instruments lay scattered about, their blades glinting menacingly in the faint light. Samantha's breath caught in her throat as she saw the skeletal remains of what could only have been a human being, partially dissected and grotesquely arranged. A wave of nausea washed over her as the reality of the factory's dark secret sank in. The mannequins weren't just lifelike. They were made from real human bodies. The factory had been using human remains to create their products, turning the dead into grotesque replicas of the living. Samantha turned to leave, but her path was blocked by a shadowy figure. A tall man with hollow eyes and a twisted grin stepped out from the darkness. He wore a blood-stained apron, and his hands were stained crimson. "Welcome to my workshop," he said, his voice a chilling whisper. "I've been expecting you." Samantha backed away, her heart racing. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice trembling. I am the master of this place, he replied, stepping closer. The creator of these beautiful works of art. She glanced around, looking for an escape, but the man continued to advance. You see, he continued, I found a way to preserve the human body in ways others could only dream of. My mannequins are perfect because they are real. Samantha's mind raced, trying to comprehend the horror before her. You're insane, she spat. The man's grin widened. Perhaps, he said, but I have created masterpieces, and now you will become one of them. With a sudden lunge, he grabbed her arm, his grip like iron. Samantha fought desperately, but his strength was overwhelming. He dragged her to the table, forcing her down. She screamed, her cries echoing through the room, but there was no one to hear her. As the man prepared his instruments, Samantha's mind reeled with terror. She was going to die here, transformed into one of his grotesque creations. Her vision blurred with tears, and she whispered a desperate prayer. Just as he raised the scalpel, the room was flooded with light. The sound of heavy footsteps filled the air, and a group of police officers burst in, guns drawn. Drop the weapon, one of them shouted. The man hesitated, his eyes darting between Samantha and the officers. In a moment of desperation, he lunged at them, but a shot rang out, and he collapsed to the floor, lifeless. Samantha was freed, trembling and in shock. The officers escorted her out of the factory, the nightmare finally over. As she stood outside, gasping for air, she watched as the police began to search the building, uncovering more horrors within. The factory was condemned and eventually demolished, but the memories of what had happened there lingered in the town's collective consciousness. Samantha's story became a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of even the most innocent-seeming places. She never forgot the terror she had faced in the Mannequin Factory, nor the twisted genius who had turned death into art. And though she continued her career as a journalist, she was forever haunted by the knowledge that some secrets are better left buried.